Right. Welcome to Mates TV. No messing around this week because this one is a big one and I don't want it to go like half an hour long. If you like these videos, first and foremost, subscribe to the channel, drop a like and all that good stuff. But I want to talk about one of the issues. So we're feeling a bit better. Liverpool beat Rangers. So it feels like they're not utterly useless. So maybe we don't have to worry about all of these points because everyone's had a hot take on why Liverpool haven't been great. And look, they might continue to not be great this season and these will all rear their ugly heads. So I've done the prep on this one. This is not just a single page of notes. No, this is 7 pages of notes I have made on this one. Is Jurgen Klopp too loyal? Because I've seen that levelled at him in the last week or so. And what I've seen it levelled at him is in opposition to Pep Guardiola. So people say the reason Pep Guardiola has had loads of success is not because he's at a football club that's a sports washing project that has a bottomless pit of funds to throw at transfers, and of course that he's a good manager. It's that he won't accept players who aren't good enough. He doesn't keep hold of players past the best. Jurgen Klopp, they say. He's too loyal. He holds on to lads just because he likes them. He holds on to them because he likes them, and that is the reason why Liverpool are struggling. This is one of the big hot takes, and I'm here to categorically, probably, disprove that. And I'm going to start this with, because what I saw when I saw this mentioned, it was Liverpool's Champions League final team in 2018-19, and then compared to the side that Liverpool started against Brighton at the weekend. So, for those of you who don't remember, I'm just going to spell this all out. If you've got a pen and paper yourself, take notes by all means. Starting team against Spurs in Madrid: Alisson, Trent, Matip, Van Dijk, Robbo, Fabinho, Hendo, Wijnaldum, Salah, Firmino, Mane. So of those starting players, only 2 of them have moved on as we now head into the 22-23 season. Out of interest, the Liverpool starting 11 against Brighton was Alisson, Trent, Matip, Van Dijk, Tsimikas, but of course you could argue Andy Robertson would have started if he was fit, Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago, Salah, Firmino, Carvalho. So yes, effectively 3 players different from the team that started the game against Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League final, and it would only be the 2. You could argue if Andy Robertson was fit, and I think that's a fair point to argue. By the way, Robertson is ahead of Simi in the pecking order. Now, first and foremost, I always find these kind of things are a little bit misleading, of course, and I've seen a lot of this, like the Liverpool haven't refreshed the squad, and you see it as a major criticism of Liverpool's ownership group that they haven't brought players in. Liverpool don't buy players, which is nonsense, by the way. Could they have bought more players? Yes, absolutely. I'm not here to argue whether Liverpool should have done more business or not. My point here is just to kind of talk around what has been done. And I would argue, just basically, in terms of having a conversation, is what is Liverpool's evolution of the team that follows. So I would suggest that having brought in Konate, you've seen Elliott brought in, obviously Thiago we've mentioned, Jota, Nunes, Diaz, you could potentially have a starting 11 of Alisson in goal, Trent at right back, a partnership at centre half of Konate and Van Dijk, Robertson still at left back, or Costa-Tsimikas, Fabinho holding, not in great form this season, but you'd still argue the best DM, and this is in 4-3-3, by the way, even though 4-2-4 isn't the new on vogue. Elliott and Thiago ahead of Fabinho, Salah and either Jota or Nunes central, and then Diaz on the left, which is more like a 5 to 6 player swing from the starting 11 that started the Champions League final, which kind of treads on the idea that Liverpool haven't refreshed the squad. They have refreshed the squad, but if you're looking at it from the first month of this season when, for example, Jota was injured, Nunes was suspended, Thiago's injured, and Konate's injured, then it's a lot harder to put those lads into the team. I think we'd all agree on that. I think that's pretty unequivocal, right? We all agree with that. What I did was I went through the signings that Jurgen Klopp had made and the sales that Jurgen Klopp had made. And then what I've done is I've actually gone through similar for Pep Guardiola as well, because I think it's a fascinating insight. So whilst there's a number of players that leave, so in summer 2019, this is just players who've left since that team in terms of the refresh. So Sturridge left, Ings left, Moreno left, and Mignolet left in the summer following the Champions League. These are notable first team players. The following summer 2020, Klein, Lovren and Lallana left. In summer 2021, Wijnaldum, Grujic and Shaqiri left. And then in this summer, Mane, Minamino, Origi and Nico Williams left. And there have been a few youth players and all that in there, of course. But 70 players in total have left since Jurgen Klopp joined. That's just a fact for what it is. What I've noticed in this, though, is that Gini Wijnaldum represents the first of Klopp's signings that he let go. So Sturridge, Ings, Moreno, Mignolet, Klein, Lovren, Lallana, as much as he liked various ones of those players to different degrees. Lallana, for example, adored Adam Lallana. He wasn't actually a Jurgen Klopp bought player. He did adore him. He'd have loved to keep him around. In fact, they kept him around effectively so that he could get his Premier League winners medal at the end of the COVID season, of course. Moving on, who's Jurgen Klopp therefore brought in? And again, in terms of notable signings, 2016-17, Mane comes in, Matip comes in, Wijnaldum comes in. In 17-18, it's Salah, Robertson, Oxlade-Chamberlain and Van Dijk. In 18-19, Keita, Fabinho, Shaqiri, Alisson. 19-20 sees Elliott, Adrian and Minamino. 2021 is Tsimikas, Thiago and Jota. And then this summer, last season is Konate and Diaz, summer, winter. And then this summer was Nunes, Ramsey, Carvalho and Artemelo coming in on loan. So again, just to clear that up. What I think is really interesting, so I went back using that 2018-19 final team as an example, because obviously people are saying Pep Guardiola doesn't stand for it, he moves players on. I wanted to see how many players relatively Man City had moved on in the same time period compared to Liverpool. So what I did was I wrote down Manchester City squad, which you can see there. There's a little bit of a depth chart that I've done in there, but what you've got there is Ederson in goal, Walker, Stones, Laporte, Zinchenko is the first choice sort of left back. There's a little bit of obviously movement around there. They had Otamendi, Company, Delph and Mendy of there as well, of course. Fernandinho was the main anchor, De Bruyne and David Silva. This is broadly the team that started, I think, one of the cup finals that season. So Fernandinho, De Bruyne, David Silva is the midfield, and a front three of Bernardo Silva, Aguero, Sterling. In addition to that, obviously, second choice goalkeeper, they've got Claudio Bravo, they've got Danilo, they've got Otamendi, Company, Zinchenko, Delph, Mendy, Gundogan. They've got Phil Foden, who's just coming through. I think he plays 7 games that season for them. They've got Gabriel Jesus, Riyad Mahrez, and Leroy Sané as well. In addition to the team that starts in 18-19 for Liverpool, which we've already mentioned, which I won't go through again. Mignolet's the backup goalkeeper. You've got Klein as a backup right back. Backup centre-halves in Gomez and Lovren. Backup left back is Moreno. Midfield, you've got backups in Lallana, Wijnaldum, Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain and Milner. Sturridge, Origi and Mane are backups for Firmino. Sorry, Sergio, Origi backups for the front three that I've mentioned already. Right, I know this is a lot of data. I'm going to hold this up again so you can have a little look. And how clear that is, but yeah, just so you get a little idea of what I've done there. Look at that, textbook. So what am I trying to do? So what I've done then is I've highlighted the players within that who are still at the football club. So out of all those players from Manchester City, you've got Ederson, Walker, Stones, Laporte, Mendy technically, yeah, I know, but he is still technically a Man City player. Gundogan, De Bruyne, Foden, Bernardo Silva and Riyad Mahrez are out there, meaning, and I'll come on to the players who've left in a moment, of the 2018-19 side and squad for Liverpool: Alisson, Trent, Matip, Gomez, Van Dijk, Robertson, Fabinho, Hendo, Milner, Salah and Firmino. So, for Manchester City, the ones who are still there, let's count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. For Liverpool, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 and then 12, 13. I didn't highlight Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain. So 10 players remain from the Manchester City squad from 2018-19 and 15, did I say? 13, 14? Christ. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yes, 13. Christ. That was hard work. So there's a 3-player swing. This is very, very loose. Now, so that sort of backs up the idea that, look, Pep Guardiola refreshes, he churns more, he doesn't hold on to more players, and particularly when you consider that James Milner is one of the players, 37 years old, of course. You know, Jordan Henderson's in his 30s now, Salah 30s, Firmino 30s, Van Dijk 30s, Alisson's now 30 as well, Matip 30 as well. you could, there's an interesting point to be made there. But I thought that was quite interesting. I expected it to be significantly more, if I'm honest. And when you consider that Oxlade-Chamberlain's on his way out anyway at the end of the season, and Keita's both contracts are up at the end of the season, I don't think the numbers are hugely disparate from the 10 that have left, or the 10 that remain, sorry, to the 13 that have remained from 18-19 to now, from Manchester City to Liverpool. So I thought what was another interesting sort of point, by the way, was to look at which of the notable first teamers that those managers bought they've moved on. Because my thing on the Man City thing, I think that difference in terms of players lost as well can be explained by some key names. And those key names are Vincent Kompany, David Silva, Fernandinho and Sergio Aguero. So two of those retire. So Kompany's retired and Fernandinho's retired. And I know David Silva's still playing in Spain, but he's gone off they've put him out to pasture, I think. And Sergio Aguero, look, he gets to move to Barcelona, but he's done. He's finished. He basically doesn't even kick a ball for Barcelona by that point. And you might argue that the health issues that come after that fact, but look, I think we can all tell all of those players were done. And even if you're only being totally literal on it and saying, well, let's just pick Kompany and Fernandinho as two players who retired, well, all of a sudden it's, I just don't think the difference between those two of those players by Pep, he had no choice. They've retired. He hasn't chosen to churn those players. They've just gotten old and stopped playing football anymore, which I think narrows the gap a little bit. And again, if we were to move this in a year's time, similarly, you might find James Milner retires in a year, Oxlade-Chamberlain, again, contract runs out, Keita, contract runs out. And again, so what I'm trying to say with this, in more words than is probably necessary, is in my eyes, I think Pep Guardiola has had to churn more than he would have liked, because let's be perfectly honest, if he inherits a Fernandinho that's 2 years younger, or a Kompany that's 2 years younger, he keeps them for 2 years longer, if that makes sense. Some of the churn is what I'm saying, has been forced upon him. And then you might say, look, again, Klopp is more, look, he's keeping Milner around. He certainly, Pep Guardiola certainly kept Fernandinho beyond his shelf life, probably 2 years beyond his shelf life, if we're being perfectly honest, maybe even 3. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point to make. But anyway, I think there's a little degree of this because, of course, Pep Guardiola inherits a title-winning side. He inherits a top side with top players, and those 4 players that I mentioned are the spine of that football team, but they're not his players. So he doesn't necessarily have a personal affinity with them. So I thought it'd be interesting to note of the notable signings for both managers who has moved on. So Leroy Sané, Zinchenko, Claudio Bravo, Gabriel Jesus and Ferran Torres. So to my mind, there's 5, and there's other players who've come and gone, but 5 noticeable first team footballers that Pep Guardiola brought in to play in his first team, played first team football, were meant for the first team. Again, that he didn't inherit, that he had a hand in signing, that he subsequently moved on. On the other side, for Liverpool, Sadio Mane, Loris Karius, Ragnar Klavan, Gini Wijnaldum, Xherdan Shaqiri, and Takumi Minamino. Now, again, there might be a slight argument over quality and all that, but what you've got there is 6 players that were bought under Jurgen Klopp for his first team that he decided either weren't good enough, or he decided they'd had their day, or he decided to move on for a variety of reasons. Like, there's a variety of reasons between why Loris Karius moves on, why Ragnar Klavan moves on, and why Sadio Mane move on. There are, but so you can't necessarily have them all under the same top. But for this general point, and what I mean by this, and this is kind of when I'm kind of coming down on this, loyalty is a really interesting term, because I would argue that you're more likely to be loyal to players that you've brought into the club. I think that makes sense. That makes sense to me. If that makes sense to you, let me know in the comments. Because you're not inheriting. These are the guys who walk in. It's like, you walk in, you buy a house, and you might keep the wallpaper in the hall stairs and landing, because let's be honest, it's a bit of a ball ache and it's quite expensive to change. But the rooms that you live in, you'll change. You'll change the living room, and you might change the kitchen, or you might change your bedroom, or you might change the bathroom. And then you're going to be less likely to change them because they suit your style. And in some regard, yeah, this is what kind of both managers have got. They've inherited a certain amount of players. But I thought it was quite interesting that fractionally more players that Jurgen Klopp has effectively okay, he's gone. Yes, him. I want him to play for my football club. He has made the decision to say, him, I don't want him to play for my football club anymore. And whether that's a collective decision or not is kind of irrelevant for the point we're making here. Where I'm trying to drive it ultimately at this is that I don't think there's a significant difference in loyalty terms to his squad or the players or keeping players around between Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. Where there has been more churn and where more footballers are coming in and out of the doors is simply, I think, a bit of a financial issue. It's the fact that City can afford to buy a fullback and pay £50 million for him and go, yeah, you know what, not for us, and they'll move him on for the loss sometimes, more often than not. Whereas Liverpool don't quite have the readies to be able to do that. They do have to trust. And in that regard, Jurgen Klopp is more loyal because he has more belief in his coaching ability to also get the most out of a footballer. And he's saying, well, if they're not going to be a starting player, can I make them into a squad player? So in that regard, maybe Jurgen Klopp is more loyal, but I don't see that as a bad type of loyalty. And also in a broad sense as well, why are we using loyalty as some sort of negative aspect? What loyalty also gives you is stability. So if you lose your head with football, if you have no loyalty to the people in your charge, it's harder to buy into the tactics, it's harder to buy into the training, it's harder to buy into your overall ethos. And also, you've got a point where when things aren't going well for you, why would these players go the extra? Why would they dig in? You know, if you're sat on the bench for a month and then all of a sudden you're thrust into a game of football through injuries, you want that guy on your side. You don't want him to feel as though, well, who gives a shit? Because I don't care. I don't care for the club. I don't care for the manager. I don't care for the fans. Loyalty counts and loyalty matters, and never more so than a football club than Liverpool, because when you can't throw money at a problem, you need to approach it from a different way. And look, maybe Liverpool can approach it from the same way as Man City. Maybe they need to go and get an ownership group and a manager who does all that. I don't know. I would suggest they've done pretty well given what they've done. They've certainly done better than almost every other club on the planet in this space of time that Jurgen's been in there. I think loyalty is a huge part of what Jurgen does. I think he likes who he likes, and he likes players who will run through brick walls for him. And I think it's a very underrated trait that you can get, because we all raised on the FIFA generation, the footy manager generation, where we look at stats and we go, this footballer is better than this footballer because his passing's 20 out of 20, but I think his passing's only like 14 or 15. But what is immeasurable and you can never gauge because there's not a proper metric to look in the white of someone's eyes and go, are you up for the fight? Are you prepared to go that extra mile? Are you going to die for the shirt? And then know that even if they say yes, you go, bullshit, because I can see it in the white of your eyes that you're just lying to me. Jurgen Klopp is the guy who does that. And so when he finds people who've got that, when you've got people around you who you can trust in any given situation, then you will stay loyal to them naturally. Do Liverpool need to be a little bit more ruthless? Maybe. Can they afford to be a bit more ruthless now? Yes, I think they actually can. I think there should be enough money in the bank now that they can afford to turn around to players and go, you know what, no, you've not done it for us. The only last consideration on that, of course, is that one thing we're seeing is that when you churn a lot of footballers over, you lose stability in what you do, and you lose collectivism, you lose understanding, and those fine margins of how your team plays, which Liverpool, when they're playing against a team that can afford to go and spend ridiculous money on wages and can churn footballers at a high value season in, season out, Liverpool need to find marginal gains everywhere. And so far, they've found marginal gains in, yes, getting every drop of blood from the players they've got. They'd rather have a player that understands what the manager's saying, what he expects, the expectations of the football club, and the tactical requirements of the role or roles that they play, rather than gamble on someone who might only come in for 1 year and not get up to speed, because some people can't get up to speed, and some people might not have the intelligence, or they might not have the football brain, they might not have the intangible skill set basically required to perform at the very, very highest level. So is Jurgen Klopp too loyal? I don't think he's too loyal. I think loyalty is a strength of his character, and it's a strength on which his Liverpool and the success of his Liverpool has been built. But I also think the top managers are loyal to good footballers. As you can see, there's plenty that have stuck around at Manchester City. You're loyal to players that you can trust. Pep Guardiola's the same as Jurgen Klopp in that regard, and I think we all would be in every walk of life, really, because you don't want to surround yourself by flakes and losers, ultimately. ultimately. You'd always rather have someone who's and even if it's someone of a lower ability, who's prepared to do all of the work and go hard. You know, there's a lot of people out there who've got all the talent in the world who haven't got the gumption or the endeavour to put it to work. Football is littered with footballers who you go, God, he's going to be a star. And what's the thing that they're missing? It's up here. It's an X factor. It's intangible. So yeah, stay loyal to those players, Jürgen. And again, trust in the process, as I'm sure you will. And you won't be watching this, and you won't care my opinion on this. But yeah, I believe in what he's doing. Do you believe in what Jürgen's doing? Let me know in the comments section underneath. Is there a player that you're glad that Liverpool have stuck around? I mean, a great example of this is someone like Jordan Henderson, who's gone on to be he's lifted more trophies than any other Liverpool captain because, you know, he had loyalty and Liverpool had loyalty to him. It's a great story. More of those, please. Yeah, sound. Right. Go and subscribe to Redmen TV, close to 500,000 subscribers. But also, the 888 Sport guys are talking about the best defenders in the Premier League. They're ranking them, right? Obviously, they're going to put Virgil top. So go over there, click the link in the description, go over to the 888 Sport channel, watch the playlist, and obviously say Van Dijk's top. But the idea that they're not mentioning Matip as the second best defender in the league and probably Konate is the third, go over and spam your top 5. I put Van Dijk, Matip, Konate, and then take your pick who goes underneath that. Say mate, send you, and anyway, I'll play it out on a clip from all that. But be boss, keep smiling, have an amazing weekend, and hopefully Liverpool can continue back on the upward charge. The wonderful team of Liverpool Klopp loyalists that they are. Thanks, one.
So who have you left off, Rob? To put Varane in,
I left Romero off. Right?
Of course you did. I can see what's happening.
It's not a bias.
It makes sense now, doesn't it?
It's always the most biased.
It's not a bias. I think Romero is good, right? I think he is good. But I just look at, for me, it was between him and Varane.
Do you know what I think we're going to have to do, Rob, if you two agree with me? I think if you want Varane on the list, I'm prepared to go with it. But Romero has to be on, which means the only way you can get Varane on the list is if you sub Saliba off it.
You must be joking, mate.
I had a feeling it'd go that way.
Feeling.
How quick was that? All right, listen.
He's like, I don't really want him.
See you later, Varane. On goes.
So Romero's on.